What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we return with Four-Stroke Baron. You will all be very disappointed to see that there is, in fact, no rotisserie chicken, whipped cream, and NyQuil this time, but a new fantastic album, Data Diamond. First of all, thanks for being on the show today, man. It's great to have you here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor to be able to talk with you. Data Diamond. So, I've heard this album for a bit now. I had the privilege of hearing it early before it saw the light of day. And listening to this album for months on end now, I gotta tell you, it's still amazing. Like, it's so addicting to go back to, and just a fantastic experience of an album. So I want to know, behind Data Diamond, what was the sort of vision behind this? Because from listening to previous albums such as Planet Silver Screen and and King Radio and all that, I've always thought that you guys were truly a work of art. So I'm just wondering now, what the hell kind of inspiration stroke for the making of this album?
Honestly, so there's like the whole thing, which I'm sure you've heard, is where we wanted to write an electronic album or an EP, and then we wanted to write something super heavy, and then so we wrote those two EPs, and we had the idea to combine them. One was going to be called Data, one was called Diamond, and like when we started writing the Diamond songs, we're just like, these are so good. We just need to kind of maybe just make this its own album. So that's where like all the heavy electronics come in. And yeah, I don't know, just as far as like writing it, we were just going insane once again. So
No, because it definitely had that sort of insane aspect behind it. I wanted to, like I've always said, that Four-Stroke Baron was almost kind of like a metal Daft Punk if I were to describe you guys as anything, and that alone can't even say it. But like when I hear like The Witch versus People in My Image, or even like a track like Monday or something like that, there's emotion, there's energy, there's envisioning behind it. Being that this was originally supposed to be separate EPs combined into one album, did that change the meaning at all, sort of like combining them together?
I guess not the meaning or anything, but it kind of changed what it changed was how we approach writing the songs. Because normally when we're writing songs, we just know it's all going to be on the next album. So when we write songs, we're not like necessarily piecing it together how it's going to fit on something or how it's supposed to sound. But since this was like the way we approached writing each song, all the heavy songs we approached like, all right, well, let's try and make this as heavy as we can. And then all the electronic songs, obviously, just make them electronic. And then that's where it got like way more experimental. And then, so there was some not fixing, but like piecing together afterwards, after we had all the songs, because we didn't want the whole album just to sound like heavy song, electronic song, heavy song, electronic song. So there's like some things we use for just transitions or build into another song and just kind of mash them together, which that was the fun part about this one. There was more piecing the whole thing together than there usually is.
Yeah.
With the other albums.
Yeah, and I also thought like The Witch was probably your most, I would say like the most traditional song in a way too, of like,
yeah, exactly.
in terms of its structure, or I guess quote unquote the more radio friendly song, if you would review it as that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like that one we only had two riffs, and we were just writing it. And we're like, this sounds so cool. Let's purposely just make this only a 2-riff song. But then there's like drum changes behind it. There's like little pattern shifts and everything. We just kind of see what's like the most we could do with just 2 riffs.
Yeah. And would you say People in My Image is probably the one of, if not the heaviest Four-Stroke Baron song there is, right?
Oh yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
And that one, I think we wrote the original riff in 2017 or something. But we recorded it, but we're like, at the time it sounded almost too death metal or something. Even though it doesn't sound like death metal, but like there's something about it we're just like, it's a little too get it for our style.
Yeah.
But we started writing for the heavy songs. Like, dude, let's use that because it's actually kind of cool. And that turned out to one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. Well, I think what made it so awesome is the way you go ooh ooh ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
like I don't know. I just move with that. It really feels like it almost makes you bounce in a way, you know?
Yeah. It's like when Matt and I are recording. Dude, we just go insane. We're just in the room, like we have the mic live. we're just hitting play, just trying ridiculous ideas and shouting and screaming. And then it just like every now and then we come up with a lot of crap that we just delete. But every now and then something like that, we're just, because you wouldn't think it's like when we recorded that line, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, I want the vocal to do this. I want it to go, but when you're just recording and just having fun in the moment and you just try a bunch of weird things, sometimes it's like a spur of the moment idea like that pops up and it just sounds super cool. So we're just like, fuck it, let's throw it in.
I wanted to know because like when it comes to like a song that captures a spur of a moment, or like when it's made to capture a spur of a moment, I always think of just like a brutal, fast, short and sweet like hardcore or punk rock song in a way, where like, not to discredit it, but like the composition or technical proficiency isn't the main focus. Your music is an experience, like with all the different elements that are incorporated in there. So how do you maintain that spur of the moment in a song in your creative process? Because it's not like, I mean, People in My Image I wasn't there when you guys wrote it, but People in My Image didn't sound like that when you first made it, obviously, with all the elements you have to add on top of it.
Yeah. So it's when Matt and I, we have like our writing process is, when we get into album writing mode, we just get together, we get at my computer, and then I have some riff ideas. He might have some drum ideas or just song ideas that we'll even, when we're hanging out, we'll just basically beatbox to each other and just sing and come up with songs on the fly. So with that one, when we get together, we just kind of start hanging out, drinking, record, and then just throw down all these ideas with super basic demo drums. And then that kind of gives us something to listen back to while we're writing it. So it's not it's different from, I think traditionally, bands sit there and they get together in a rehearsal space and jam, try to write the song on the fly just with their instrument playing. And it's more Matt and I, it's just every little idea we get. And every time we say we have one good riff, we record it and then we go, okay, what could be next? Then we start recording just wild stuff while we're just having fun, shouting and freaking out and trying stupid things. And then you just kind of see what sticks and then do that long enough. And it kind of, everything starts out this super blurry, crappy version. Every song starts out with like a minute and a half, just string of riffs. And there's some stupid vocal lines and none of the lyrics are actual lyrics. They're just us kind of scatting on the spot. And then over time, just kind of comes into focus. And then you lengthen it. And then with that, when you have the riffs that you've started to record, you can kind of like bridge onto them and actually write more fluidly.
Do you think we're ever going to run out of riffs one day? Because 9 times out of 10, when I ask somebody how a song starts off, a lot of times they say it usually starts with a riff. How many riffs do you think there are left? I'm starting to understand why like the people's guitar string, the amount of guitar strings keep increasing.
Yeah, dude, I love that you asked that. Because during this, I was like, dude, we have run out of riffs. Not us, the world. There's only so much can be done on a guitar. And that's actually a good point with like more strings. Now the riffs are changing. And it's for me personally, because I always played an E standard when I was younger. And all the old music I wrote was an E standard, sometimes dropped D. But then with four-stroke Baron stuff, I started tuning down to B, some songs down to A. And then we did some songs that are tuned to F sharp, like 8-string tuning. And but just writing on the instrument, you start to just form patterns. No one can just write the best riffs ever forever. And that's where making electronic music is fun, because you can still write with the guitar, but you're not bound to just guitar tones. So if I have a riff, it doesn't have to be a clean tone or a distorted tone. I can just transpose a riff into some kind of electronic thing. Yeah. And that kind of separates you from the writing, because it's like playing an instrument is just muscle memory. So if you're 35, your muscles are just, they're playing the same things over and over. And that's why so many bands they have their distinct sound, but they can't get past it, because you can't just bring yourself to change everything you've learned about guitar.
Yeah. Well,
and if you limit yourself with just distorted guitar, then we're gonna run out of riffs one day.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always thought like industrial music, like industrial bands, like you take the industrial category, like Nine Inch Nails doesn't sound much like Ministry, which doesn't sound much like Skinny Puppy, which doesn't sound like Throbbing Gristle or Frontline Assembly. I feel like
Yeah.
that Four Stroke Baron does kind of have like that similar like industrial sort of feel behind it because when you look at all the industrial bands that bring great guitar riffs, and not discrediting any of the guitar players, but like I feel like with industrial music, it's not about the guitar riffs. It's about what is surrounding the guitar riffs that make it both heavy and very
Yeah.
atmospheric at the same time. And I think that same sort of formula sort of goes along with Four Stroke.
Yeah, that's like Rammstein. Like I love Rammstein, but all the riffs are just the guitar is supporting the rest of the song.
Yeah.
It's not like, I check out Rammstein for their kick-ass riffs. All the riffs are just just simple things. And yeah, it's a lot of industrial music has that. And that's I think why a lot of industrial music is cool is because it relies on the production. Like the reason it's industrial is the production behind it. It has all those like older stuff, those like 80s synths and actual industrial sounds and like machines and weird ambient noises. And that's my favorite kind of music, where it's actually the production side of it that kind of gives it its quality. It's not just I don't know, just whoever. AC/DC, that's a rock band. Like AC/DC just wants to play guitars, drums, bass, and vocals. They don't want any effects. It's not about the production quality, even though the production quality is amazing. It's strictly about the instrument itself. And I mean, there's a time and place for that. It's cool, but all the music I like to listen to has a production element that just makes it interesting. It's like, if you have access to all these tools, why not make it sound insane?
I'm so glad to hear you mention that, and you bring up a good point. So, like, I get shit for this, and at this point I'm proud to do it, but, like, I will listen to the bands that I grew up with, Disturbed, Avenged Sevenfold, Killswitch, Trivium, before I would listen to a lot of the classic artists, before I would listen to Sabbath or Priest or Maiden or something like that. And not because I don't like the music, not because I think it's bad or whatever. I understand their influence, but the production of the former bands I just interviewed makes it much more digestible in the ears. Whereas for like a lot of old school stuff, and I'm not saying that that's their fault too. I mean, they were working with what they had at the time, but like there is something about listening to an album that is better produced than listening to a classic album that isn't as well produced, and if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some albums that are more like I love Testament. When I was in high school, I started playing guitar. I got into thrash phase, and Testament, the album The New Order, it has the worst 80s thrash production, and it's all those classic bands they built the fundamentals for all these things. It's something like a guitar and just the heavy music in general. It's like those are the fundamentals of it. And I think at this point we're past it. If you're trying to be just a straight up rock band now, you sound like a cover band or like a weird tribute band of some sort.
Or all your songs sound like B-sides that were not released for a reason. And before like people would want to argue like, oh well, they were talented, they didn't need to hide behind all that production. I'm like, okay, fair enough, but why are a lot of those bands re-releasing now remastered versions of those albums? Rainbow in the Dark, which is one of the most classic rock albums ever and one of the best albums ever, is still being remastered and reproduced for a reason.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Like, I hear some it's just it happens a lot in metal, I think. Like a death metal band, a new death metal band, and they're like, hey, here's this fresh take on death metal, and I could not piece it together or separate it from just 1,000 other death metal bands that are out there. And I get it because it's fun. There's some people who they play music for different reasons. Like they want to play death metal. They listen to death metal. They're really good at guitar. They have a kick-ass drummer, and they all like death metal, and they have fun playing death metal shows. So it's not like that stuff sucks, but I'm just not interested in that kind of thing at all.
Yeah. No,
it's just making music where it sounds like a rehashed version of something you have,
I'll say
it's always been more fun to build on your own new thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love death metal. I love old school death metal. I love Cannibal Corpse and Obituary, Morbid Angel. I do love a lot of the new death metal bands, Sanguisugabogg and Frozen Soul and Creeping Death. But when I hear old school people like, I don't get these new death metal bands, I'm like, how? It has everything that we've heard in Tomb of the Mutilated. It has everything that we hear in, you name it, Slowly We Rot, or
exactly.
Once Upon a Cross. Like, you can't possibly tell me, you can't pinpoint, and it's not just in death metal, it's in deathcore. Oh, I love Suicide Silence, but Chelsea Grin, fuck those guys. Like, I don't know how you could. Oh, I love.
How these people? How are you that discerning with those tastes?
Yeah,
and I get it too, because there's certain styles of music like that I got into. I was never huge into death metal. Just some of the, I don't know, like the popular stuff I would just listen to sometimes. It was kind of just cool. But I think thrash, that was the one, just basic, like fundamental genre that I really got into. And I did get some kind of discerning between bands. When you start to listen to it a lot, you hear very subtle differences. Like Anthrax has a certain type of riff that Testament never has. Like Anthrax is more of like party music. Testament is more kind of like virtuoso, kind of melodic, shredding type of thing.
Anthrax is thrash for the party. Testament is thrash for the revolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but in terms of with Four Stroke, because with all of the electronic elements that you do bring that are just so incredible, how are you? Because I've had the privilege of seeing you guys play live only once so far, and it was on the Sarah Longfield tour from way back in the day. But
yeah, shit.
But how do you manage to replicate that? Because in the end, the studio magic is amazing, but you also have stage magic. How do you bring the studio magic onto the stage, though?
That was our biggest learning curve. So we started Four Stroke Baron without the idea of playing live, or we didn't want to promote it on any social media. It's like Matt and I had been in bands. We're sick of the band thing. This is 2014. So we're just like, dude, let's just make this music, put it out for free. I don't want to promote it. Don't want to be trying to get shows and do all this. So with that, we approached writing the music just with the idea of never playing it live, meaning we can play all the parts, but just as far as how we make it sound, the vocal tracks especially the earliest stuff, there's like 20 vocals on one track, and which that's so hard to create live without just having backing tracks. And so the newer stuff, it just as I got more confident with my voice, it is easier to play live. It's like deceptively easy to play live, where it's a lot of the songs are bass, guitar, drums, vocals. The vocals have a ton of effects, but I have an effects unit that I can just rig and have it change patches on the fly. So I can do all the vocal effects live, and then just like doing that live, it's kind of a learning process, and there's just how you monitor it and all these things that our earlier shows, I think we're still kind of figuring it out. But really on this last tour, we hit our stride, and this is like the best we've sounded live. We're just the most locked in, figured out more how to get the vocals sounding better. It's doing as many vocals effects as I use. It's kind of hard to get that live with just normal products, but it's eventually you figure out a way to get it all working. So
you guys
there's some songs we couldn't do, where they'll have some songs are chopped up guitar parts where it's purposely just we have one note and we just paste it like straight 16th notes chopped to a grid, and then we just adjust the pitch on every note, just make it go insane, because we're just sitting there. It's like playing video games at the computer, just making it sound as crazy as possible, because that's what we care about, is just the end product that people are listening to. The live show is like its own separate challenge. There's certain songs we purposely avoid because it would be like we don't want to have too much stuff in the backing track. We'll have synths and things like that, but no guitars or vocals unless it's like an affected kind of synthy vocal. Yeah, it's its own little beast to tackle.
And you led me perfectly into the final question, though, and that's because you and Matt writing together is you both write incredibly together, and you both are very interesting individuals, which I mean is a compliment. You could almost be like the dark metal synthwave Simon and Garfunkel. I don't know what you would call it, but but both of you work very well together, but you also are very individual. Do both of you really have to be in the same headspace or be in the same creative mindset when creating together? Or does being you off in your own individual separate worlds actually sort of like help make the Four Stroke Baron sound exist?
Yeah, when Matt and I get together, it's like effortlessly in the same headspace. it's the second I see him, like we just look at each other, we know what we're thinking, and we just like immediately just start going insane. I think we just built this connection of I don't know, writing music, just like totally unfiltered. Just so it's when we're together, it's effortlessly productive, and it's just that kind of is how Four Stroke Baron happens. But then separately, like because there's stuff that we'll write separately. I mean, when it would be insane if I had the energy I had around Matt when I was alone. I just feel like manic, going insane. But so separately, when I'm writing music myself, it's usually more, I don't know, I'm just quietly sitting there in my room, like plucking around and get little riffs that kind of move me a certain way, and I just write them down. But a lot of those I'll bring to Matt, and there's some things he'll write alone that he brings. But then once we piece them together, there's always some kind of addition to them. The one thing I think we never do is we very rarely just shoot down an idea. If anyone has an idea, we just entertain it, see how it works, and then take it from there. And there's a lot of ideas that Matt will have an idea that originally I don't really care for. I'm like, I don't know, but it ends up being amazing. And then there's certain ideas that if I bring forward, he's like, dude, I don't know if this, like, I don't know, this riff just doesn't do it for me. But then we just kind of let it get its full, like its due process. let the riff get the end, and then it always ends up turning out kick ass.
Nice.
We're pretty good at also knowing when we have something that sucks. We don't really drag something out if we're kind of realizing, because we do have times where you're working on a song for 6 hours and you go, dude, maybe we just scrap this. Like, this isn't that great.
Yeah, but nothing's got to suck than wasting time. Suck more than wasting time.
Yeah, it's hard to do that, but it happens.
Kill your darlings, right? So,
yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Most of all, though, thank you for Data Diamond. This album is spectacular. It's in my top 10 for this year. I don't think it's going anywhere from there. Like, fantastic record. What could we be expecting for Four Stroke Baron in the near future? Please tell me that there are some tours in the works, because I got to hear this shit live.
Yeah, we're really trying to tour. Like, so for some reason, it's easier to get tours in Europe. In Europe, I think they're more open to small-scale progressive bands. But we have a U.S. booking agent right now. Actually, I have a call today where we're working on some U.S. tours, as we've neglected the U.S. for too long. So have definitely had focusing on tours. We have to do like a big U.S. tour. We want to go everywhere.
Was that Sarah Longfield tour the last one you did?
Yeah, that was 2021.
2021.
And we've gotten so much better since then. We did the Vola tour. And then on this Caligula's Horse tour, we just kind of dialed in. We know our rhythm. We know what songs translate. We know how to deal with our technical situation and make sure it's like how we want it to sound through the PA. And then, so we have that. And then we have a bunch of data songs, the electronic songs that we're still planning to release. We're reproducing those, tightening them up and making them sound badass. So,
hell yeah.
Plenty of new stuff.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. And I hope next time we speak, bring out the rotisserie chicken and the NyQuil. But be honest, like, Matt's not here today because that shit killed him, right? Or did he have too much? Did he have too much beforehand and is taking care of other matters right now?
We said, we're like, dude, he's gonna be so disappointed. Like, he's probably waiting for some insane thing, but you can't keep that up forever. It's too beautiful outside.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes total sense. But I can say start making your own NyQuil. Bands have been making their own beer and stuff. You need to make your own NyQuil.
Yeah. Find a brewery.
Yep, exactly.
Just put some Benadryl in some beer.
Hey, you know what, man? That'll definitely mellow out the party. Your shit's chill to listen to. So, but awesome. Thank you, everybody.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you, and
thank you, man. Everybody,
it's always good talking to you.
Everybody, we are here with Four Stroke Baron. Be sure to check out Data Diamond. It is out now. Pick it up while supplies last forever. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.